All right, Steve, go ahead.
All right, Michael Chandler, this is Steve Jewin from MMA Mania. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for the time today.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I appreciate it, man.
No problem. Hey, this fight was supposed to be a rematch between you and Benson Henderson, but at the last minute you're facing Sidney Outlaw instead. So are you a little bummed that you don't get to have that rematch and make another statement?
A little bit. I mean, there's always that moment of letdown every time an opponent pulls out. For me, I've had an opponent pull out of a fight or an opponent change probably 6 or 8 times in my career, which is a lot. But it's just one of those things that you feel sorry for yourself for a day, and then you get right back on the game plan. And then I found out I'm fighting Sidney Outlaw, and then now the game plan doesn't really change much. We continue in the same course of action, and tweak a couple things. And for me, man, it's not about Benson Henderson or Sidney Outlaw. It's about being the best version of myself when I step inside that cage in the Saitama Super Arena in front of 40,000 Japanese fans, man. So this is an exciting opportunity and an exciting event, a cross-promotion event between Bellator and Rizin, so this is going to be cool.
Let's talk about Saitama Super Arena for just a second before I get back to Sydney, because, as you said, Saitama Super Arena, very historic venue, and a lot of Pride events were held there back in the day. With Fedor and Rampage on the top of this card, it's kind of got that feel.
It does, and that's the thing. These fans are going to, come out of the woodwork to remember the old Pride days, and we all remember those old Pride days. I've alluded to them a couple times today in these interviews, talking about how, I was introduced to the sport of mixed martial arts by my good friend and college roommate, Raymond Jordan, who used to walk to Blockbuster and bring back the VHS tapes and pop them in the VCR, and we'd watch the old school UFC 1s and 2s and 3s, and then the Pride fights. So, this is exciting, and those people the Japanese crowd is going to show up, and they're going to be excited, and they love to see big, large, massive live events, and the Saitama Super Arena is about as iconic of a venue as you could have out there on the on Japanese soil. So this is exciting, and I'm excited to expand my footprint, expand my fan base, and be able to, I haven't made much of a splash in Japan since I beat and retired Akihiro Gono, probably 8 years ago it was at this point. So I'm excited to go out there and make a splash with the Japanese crowd, and can't wait to go out there and compete.
Well, I'm sure Sidney Outlaw is hoping to make that kind of splash too, and he's coming in with 9 straight wins. So I know you say the plan doesn't change that much from him to Benson Henderson, but you definitely can't overlook him as a dangerous guy.
Yeah, he's a guy who he's pretty basic and straightforward. He's got good wrestling, he's got good grappling. He's not afraid to exchange leather, but he's also never stepped his foot in the cage with a world-class talent like me. His last fight against Roger Huerta, he looked good, but the discrepancy and the difference between Roger Huerta's skills and my skills are going to be very apparent from the first exchange. So, for me, this isn't about him or Benson Henderson or anything besides me stepping into that cage and fighting like I have trained, listening to my coaches, and sticking to the game plan, and looking for a finish wherever it arises.
He said something weird to me when I talked to Sidney Outlaw a day ago. He said that he was coming into the cage, going out of the cage, going to give you all the respect in the world because he was a huge fan. And I mean, that's okay for a fan of mixed martial arts to say, but as a fighter, do you really want to be a fan of somebody when you're going to fight them?
Probably not. But, the good thing about this sport, man, is it takes all kinds of people. Nate Diaz is a fan of nobody. Right. But then again, you got, but that's just his mentality. Then again, you look at Frankie Edgar, you look at George St. Pierre, you look at some of these other guys. We just saw Max Holloway talk better about Volkanovski than anybody has in his entire career. And the man just beat him and took his belt. This sport is full of men and women who step into the cage for different reasons. Sidney Outlaw was homeless a couple years ago. His rise to fighting now at Saitama Super Arena in front of 45,000 people and making probably a pretty decent paycheck because Bellator needed someone to step in as a late replacement. That's a dream come true for a young man like that. So whether he's a fan of me or he's a fan of the sport or he hates my guts, it doesn't really matter. We're all motivated by different things. I want to go out there and I want to inflict bodily harm and finish him in the first round, not because I dislike him, not because I am not a fan of his work, not because I hate his guts, but because I have a family to take care of. And I made a promise to my wife and my son the day that I married my wife and the day that we adopted my son. I made a promise to both of them that I would love and take care of them until the day that I die. And every single one of these fights is another opportunity to do that. So it has nothing to do with Sidney Outlaw, and it doesn't matter. I don't think the fact that he's a fan of me is going to make him swing any less hard or try to choke me any less hard. So we're going to see a fight on next Saturday night here in the States, Sunday night in Japan, and I look forward to going out there and competing against him.
You actually hit on a perfect note that I can raise right here in response to that, because one of the other things he said to me was Tiago Pitbull gave him some of the best advice of his career. He said, don't overthink this. At the end of the day, a fight is a fight. And so for him, what does he have to lose going in here in front of 45,000 people? He's not going to be thinking about that. He's not going to be thinking about the fact that he's a fan of yours. At the end of the day, a fight is a fight as far as he's concerned.
Yeah, it's true, and that's great advice from a guy like Pitbull, man. I'm a fan of Pitbull. I sparred against him one of my first training trips. I went down to ATT and he beat the crap out of me, and he's a guy who's been in the sport for a long time. He's a guy who's taken his lumps, he's taken his wins, he's taken his losses. He's been one of the mainstays on the roster of the UFC for over a decade. So that is the thing about mixed martial arts and about competing. And you probably hear it in other sports. The 10-year veteran of the NFL is probably saying, hey, young kid, hey, rookie, don't overthink this. It's just another football game. You've been doing this since you were 7 years old. This is same thing with baseball, same thing with all these other sports. It's just, this is a fight. And yes, I'm going to punch him hard. And yes, I'm going to try to take his soul. And yes, I'm going to try to hurt him. But really, at the end of the day, it really is just a fight. And it's another guy with 2 arms and 2 legs that you have to compete against. It doesn't matter if you're fighting Michael Chandler or, a random untrained man off the streets. You got to go out there and you got to compete to the best of your ability. So I take my hat off to him, Sidney Outlaw, for stepping into the cage and giving me an opportunity to have an opponent whenever Benson Henderson pulls out. Here goes another opportunity for both of us to see what we're made of. And someday we'll look back at this and maybe after the fight we'll enjoy a drink together and enjoy a conversation. But for now, it's business as usual. I'm coming to step into that cage to put on a show for the fans, to put a paycheck in my wife and son's bank account, and to go out there and compete against another man who's trying to take something from me.
Well, somebody who did take something from you is Patricio Pitbull, and most likely he's going to be cornering his brother Patrici for the Rising portion of the Bellator Rising co-promoted card. So what are your thoughts on the fact that he's going to be there and you're probably going to cross paths?
I haven't really thought about it. I guess it is true. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really matter to me, man. I'm not driven by hatred. If he hates me and he can't play nice and he wants to try to fight me in a lobby on my fight week, that's fine. He can do that. I'll go ahead and just avoid that, because at the end of all of this, I really could care less about Patricio Pitbull. I could care less about him beating me last fight. This isn't about the wins and losses. He threw a punch, and I zigged when I should have zagged, and he caught me. I've caught 10 or 15 other people like that, just like that, and I caught his brother like that. That's the beauty of this sport. Anybody can win or lose in a matter of an instant in this sport when you're fighting in a cage with 4-ounce gloves. So for me, there's no animosity there. I'm focused on Sidney Outlaw. I'm focused on expanding my reach and expanding my platform and expanding my bank account and expanding my self-worth and my self-discovery of this journey of mixed martial arts. And it has nothing to do with any opponent. It has everything to do with me continuing to get better, continuing the same course of action like I have since August of 2009 when I first started this sport, and it'll be like that till the day I take my gloves off and put them in the middle of the cage.
I know you say there's no animosity between you, and probably it's all on his side, but I do have to wonder, because during the commentary on the fight, while it was going on live, a lot of people were questioning whether that was a legal knockout punch that he hit you with, whether it was to the temple or to the back of the head.
Well, I'm on the camp that when we're on our feet, I think you should be able to punch someone square in the back of the head in an exchange, just because there's no way you can really stop the projection of a punch when you're on your feet And if you punch someone in the back of the head because he moves his head, it was a split-second timing of a punch that you can't really stop a punch once it starts. But the subsequent 8 punches to the back of the head when we were on the ground, all of those were illegal blows, and all of those were the ones that did damage. And even after the ref jumped in, he threw a punch around the ref and punched me in the back of the head again. So that's where I have a problem with anything to the back of the head. The first punch, yes. Was it behind the ear and almost to the back and pretty much to the back of the head? Yes. But that was unintentional. The rest of the punches were all intentional and to the back of the head. So that's where I have a little bit of a problem with it. I'm not here to cry over spilt milk. Yeah, maybe I lost some brain cells, and yeah, I'd like to have that fight. I'd like to have all of that damage back that he did. But I signed up for this. I signed on the dotted line to get into a fist fight, and I have to enjoy and take the results as they land.
I sincerely doubt you lost any brain cells from that one, because you always give the lucid and clear answers that I'm looking for. So I'll ask another one, and you can give me an equally clear answer on this one. If there's nothing that you're mad about except for those punches on the ground, what is the future for you and Patricio? Are we going to see it again or not?
I don't know. I mean, obviously he's got 2 or 3 more fights in that tournament. So it's going to be a little while before he and I even have the opportunity to step in the cage, because he's, most likely going to make the finals. So he's at least fighting 1 or 2, at least 2 more fights in that tournament, I would say. So that ties him up for another 6 to 8 months. So we'll see. My contract will be up by then. So we'll see. We got some negotiating to do, and we got some, that kind of, all of that stuff to figure out. But for me, I've always said I've never really worried about getting a rematch against anybody except for Eddie Alvarez. Whenever you have an instant classic like the first fight, and another instant classic like the second fight, and then to be scheduled for a third fight, and then he gets injured, and then moves on to the UFC and wins the UFC title. Now he's at 1. That's the only fight that I've ever really wanted, to put a stamp on and finish a trilogy. The fight with Patricio, yeah, there's some animosity. Yeah, there's a great storyline, but it was just like losing to Will Brooks, and it was just like losing to Brent Primus, and it's all the same, man. To me, it's not even really about the opponent. It's about fighting and outperforming my previous self. But I would love to have that trilogy fight with Eddie, so we'll see what the future holds.
Well, speaking of those trilogy fights and possible opportunities, you said the contract's coming up soon, and there are a lot of players making a lot of moves. We just saw Rory McDonald go to the Professional Fighters League, so you talked about one as well. Are you getting any feelers from any of these kind of people?
No, I mean, everybody knows I'm still under contract, and if I ever was asked or gotten any feelers, man, I always like to be able to lay my head on a pillow at night knowing that I'm always operating with integrity. So for me, I haven't had any feelers. I haven't had any conversations. I'm extremely happy with Bellator. I'm extremely happy with the last 8 years I've been with Bellator. It was a little sad to see Rory McDonald go. I think he's a phenomenal talent. He was a phenomenal talent for Bellator to have. But he obviously got a better deal over at PFL, and that's great for him, man. Whatever organization is going to pay the fighter the most, and so he or she can put food on the table for their family, that's where they should go. I mean, acting as if this is not the entertainment business, or acting as if there is some kind of merit basis for, becoming the best fighter in the world, you're kidding yourself. So it's all about money. It's all about making as much money as you can, and also coupling that with the entertainment factor, and also coupling with being a competitor. Wherever you can find that, that's where you should be. For me, it's been Bellator for the last 8 years, and we've had a phenomenal time. So after this fight, I'm sure we'll have some conversations, and we'll see what's up, and we'll continue to move forward. Either way, I'm going to put on a great show for Bellator, and I'm glad they're co-promoting with Ryzen, and it is, it's being governed for us by the Mohegan Sun Tribe. A couple days ago, or about a week ago, I got a phone call that said, hey, I'm, Mike Mazzulli from the Mohegan Sun Commission. You have 36 hours to do this random drug test. You have to go pee in a cup at Quest Diagnostics. So I had no idea it was coming. So it's cool to see that we have random out of competition or in competition drug testing going on, happening. It's not just happening in the UFC. So we're making Bellator's making bigger movements towards drug testing. They're making bigger movements towards getting free agents. They're making big moves when it comes to putting on $1 million Grand Prix tournaments. So Bellator's on the up and up, and I've continued to be on that trajectory with them. We both helped each other a lot, so we're continuing to move forward, and we're having a blast.
I honestly hope that it stays that way, too, because it's hard for me to imagine Bellator MMA without Michael Chandler in it.
Yeah, and that's, me too, and that's what I'm saying. I have no intentions of even looking anywhere else. I never have once negotiated with any other organization. There was a couple times where my exclusivity period, my negotiating period was getting close, but we've always found a way to make both sides happy, and Bellator's taking great care of me, and we'll see if that happens here in the next 6 months or so, see what happens. And then it would be interesting to see a Bellator organization without me in it, but we'll see.
All right, Michael, I know our time's running short here, but I got a couple more for you. First, this question about Sidney Outlaw. The majority of his wins have come by form of submission, so this is not something you've not seen before in your career. You've been in there with many submission artists, but where do you rate Sidney Outlaw compared to them?
I have yet to see one fight where he got a submission. I think they were on more of the local small shows. The only fights I've seen are the Huerta fight, the Dana White Contender Series fight, and then one other fight that I found on YouTube or something. So he's probably just a guy that gets rear naked chokes, and a lot of times rear naked chokes aren't really skillful. They're just a guy doesn't know how to either defend it, or a guy got so tired that you're able to wrap your arm around their neck and choke him. So he's not anywhere near a submission artist like Vincent Henderson is, or Goiti Yamauchi is, or Patricio Pitbull, a black belt, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. So not taking his submissions lightly, but I never get submitted in practice. I've never once been submitted in a fight. So I will be cautiously optimistic that I will always be able to know exactly what to do in whatever position I am in, continue to move forward and put the pressure on him. The goal is to get him so darn tired and so darn second-guessing himself so darn much that he has no idea where he's at and has no idea how he could even fathom submitting Michael Chandler inside that cage.
All right, Michael, here's my final question for you. You said it had been many years since you retired Akira Gono in Japan, and you were looking forward to going back. How much are you going to be able to enjoy this trip, even though it's all about the business of having a fight?
I think it's going to be great. And really, I think the greatest part about it is I'm fighting at a catchweight of 161. Those last 6 pounds are the hardest to cut. So I'll be able to go to bed, the night before at 163, 164, 165, wake up, cut the last couple, and probably feel phenomenal. So the hardest part about the week is the weight cut. You're anticipating the weight cut. You're anticipating how hard it's going to be. You're anticipating the fight before the fight, if you will. So I got my fight family with me. I got Marquez Jackson traveling with me. Henry Hooft and his wife Pookie will be out there on Monday before I get there Tuesday. And then Kami's going out there with me. Kami Barzini, my MMA coach. And then my mom and dad will be out there. My wife will be out there. And one of my best friends, Drew, who does all my filming and documenting. So it's going to be great, man. It's going to be a small group, and we're going to make some big moves that night. And I know the fight starts at 12. So I'm hoping to be out of that cage by 2:30 p.m. and do the press conference, and then enjoy some really good sushi, some really good Kobe beef, and a little bit of Japanese whiskey, and go from there.
That sounds like an awesome plan. So I hope you get to enjoy those post-fight festivities with a big win and a big smile on your face. But Michael, before I let you go, if you have any plugs, please go ahead.
No, that's pretty much it. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. And make sure everybody tunes in December 28th here in the States.
Absolutely. December 28th and live on Paramount Network. So it'll be a great show. Michael, thank you for the time.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Dan, as well.
All right. Thanks, Steve.
Yep.